Hello, 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 and welcome to the Tennis Lifestyle Podcast, where we discuss tennis and much, much more. I'm your host, Luca, and today I will have an interview with a very special guest. His name is Todd Widom. Todd is the founder and operator of a tennis school. He does private tennis coaching in Broward County in Florida. He also does tennis. He does tennis coaching, massage, bodywork, and so on. I had a really good discussion, long discussion and chat with him. It was very interesting. I suggest all parents and juniors that want to go, let's say, high performance and are interested in maybe going through a college route or maybe even becoming professional. He's got a lot of interesting information. The reason I wanted to speak to him and chat to him is he does a lot of podcasts, and I've heard some interviews and some videos with him, and he's one of those people who tells things very tennis wise. He just explains things very simply but very effectively. And on top of that, Todd was also a professional ATP player. He was a top 200 in singles and doubles. So he's got a few interesting stories also about his life on the tour. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed the chat, and I would like to actually speak to him again because we only got like halfway through all the questions I had. But anyway, we recorded this on the 21st of June. I'm at home in Cape Town. It was a very rainy day, and Todd was in Florida. So I hope you enjoy, and ciao, ciao. Hi, Todd.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Doing well. Thanks for
Great.
inviting me on your show.
Thanks a lot for coming on my podcast. I wanted to have you on the podcast and to chat to you. I mean, we've never met, and we don't really know each other, but I've listened to a lot of interviews and podcasts you've done, and some YouTube videos and other stuff on the web, and also the ones you do with Lisa Stone, Parenting Aces, which I actually interviewed recently. I interviewed her. But the reason I wanted to speak to you is I listen to a lot of these things on the web, and you are one of the few people who, in tennis, you just seem to speak very in a simple way, but very effective, and you get to the point, and you kind of say things, all things that I understand and make complete sense, and yet it's so difficult to come across people in tennis who explain it like you. I mean, I'm being very honest. I think
Well,
you're very good. Yeah.
well, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. No, it's very kind words, and I think tennis should be communicated in the most simplest way that you can, so that the students and the parents understand what's going on, right? So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, definitely. I usually divide sort of the podcast in two. I mean, I'm quite new to this, but the first part I kind of talk about you and what you're up to and what you've done, etc. And then the second part is like a lot more relaxed, and I just ask a whole bunch of different questions, which could be a bit of anything. They're shorter questions. So
okay.
I just wanted to say, okay, you own, you can correct me, but you own and run a tennis, I think you call it like a tennis school in Broward County in Florida.
That
And
is,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
No, and you focus on high performance juniors, college and professional tennis players. you were also a professional ATP player, reaching top 200 in singles and doubles. And I see you've played also against many top players, including Stepanek, David Ferrer, and Kevin Anderson, amongst others. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you have it all right. Basically, what I'm doing, what you're seeing, and what you're hearing is, you have a lot of tennis academies all throughout the world. A lot in the United States or even worldwide, where they're taking on masses of kids.
Yeah.
Where some kids may be serious, maybe not. Maybe some coaches are good, maybe some coaches that aren't so great. And so I consider that more of a public schooling, where you're taking
Yeah.
on, anyone and everyone. And what we're doing is more of a private schooling. You could consider it, like a private schooling for academics. We're doing that for tennis, where the kids are guaranteed to be with some really high level guys all day long,
Yeah.
managing the careers of these select kids, and
Yeah.
trying to help achieve their goals and dreams. But it's not masses. It's the kids that we love to be with on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I wanted to talk about that. There's a lot of topics I want to touch, but just immediately after the introduction, I was thinking, do you prefer coaching now that you've done it for I think it's 10 years or more, or did you prefer playing on the tour?
Sure. So, well, there's definitely two different feelings. When
Okay.
I was playing before and I was able, to have some amazing victories or great, tournaments, that was a high that I don't know, that I'll feel again, unless maybe one of my students, really wins like a really big title or achieves,
Mm.
some unbelievable heights, maybe in the professional arena.
Okay.
Those highs were incredible, because it's what you've been dreaming about ever since, I started playing tennis when I was 6 years old. So you're dreaming, and
Mm.
that you play on big stages against the world's best tennis players. So when I was able to do that sporadically, it wasn't all the
Yeah.
time, but when I was able to do that and really test my skills and maybe win matches or play great matches against some of the world's best, that was a tremendous high.
Yeah.
Now, for the last decade, for me, what really gets me going and the most enjoyable aspect is passing my knowledge on to, my students, and then
Yeah.
seeing them progress at a rapid rate, and then sending them
Mm.
off for an amazing future, whether it's going to an amazing college, which most are going to go to incredible colleges, and then, on to their
Okay.
lives, post tennis, or maybe a professional career. So, it's different
Yeah.
feeling, but both are fantastic to me.
But both are very nice. Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. I wanted to talk about this because about tennis school, tennis academy, private coaching, blah blah blah. It's something that you expressed well already now, but also in other podcasts and so on. You said it very well, I think, and I just feel it's kind of interesting, especially for parents or people or even players who play tennis and love it and maybe want to take it to a next level, but they might not have exactly the knowledge or the whole picture. And I feel I don't know how it is in the USA. I must be honest, but I can speak for
Sure.
South Africa. I've
Yeah.
I've got two kids who play, 15 and
Okay.
16,
Okay.
and what I've noticed is the here you have a lot of academies, and many of them are also linked to schools like primary schools or high schools. But
Yeah.
um, what I find is that most of these, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them function as businesses, which maybe they should do, but they are purely doing it for a business purpose. And what
Right.
I mean by that is, an academy is you send your kids there and they have to cater for maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 kids. And
Right.
I kind of make this comparison, and you can tell me, maybe I'm talking rubbish here, but it's like saying McDonald's. McDonald's does a hamburger, and that hamburger, they know it's a certain price, and it sort of appeals to the majority of the people. It's not great, it's not bad, it's sort of appeals to everyone. And as we know in tennis, everyone's different. So it's like somebody saying, I like that hamburger, but I prefer mine like this, or I prefer it with this, or with extra bacon, etc., etc. And the same is in a tennis academy. In a tennis academy, every single player is different. So they are thrown all together in this big group, and they are taught one way. And it obviously won't help one player. It's not, they're not taken individually. So that's what I feel here. And on top of that, also they get taught the same thing. While in many cases, you need to look at the kid or the girl and specifically teach specific things according to their progress. So that's sort of what I understood from you. And the other thing that you were talking about, which I thought was extremely interesting, is in none of these academies, and I'm not talking now, there are some exceptions, obviously, but I'm talking about the majority of the places you go to. They don't teach you really how to play tennis. They put you on the court with a lot of kids, and you're hitting back at the baseline. They're not teaching you point construction, patterns of play, game plans, momentum shifts, and the juniors are not aware of what's going on, in a match then. Can you maybe talk a bit about that, and also at the same time describe your system at your school, how you develop it, and why you think it's effective?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I'll go back to what you were first speaking about, is that each and every child is different. So the kids that are coming into our arena are usually about, I would say, 12 and to 18 years old. So they've all had different parenting. They've all had previous coaches, that were different. All the kids are gonna, have different bodies. They're gonna grow into mature young adults. So athletically, they're all different. Their techniques are different. Grips are different. Maybe their mentalities are different. So you have to look at each and every case differently, right? And you have to understand what clicks for each and every child. We do not train all the kids the same way. They all have maybe slightly different techniques. If you look at the best tennis players in the world, they all hit the ball with different techniques, but obviously very effective. So I do not believe in a cookie cutter mold. If you have, say, 20 or 50 or 100 kids and you're training them all the same, maybe a couple can turn out to be some pretty good players. But what happens to the vast majority of the players? That's what's concerning. So, and you can't tell me, well, 80 or 90% of the players, they're not this or they're not that. I don't believe in that. I've heard a lot of those things where, oh, well, they're just not good athletes, or they don't want to train well or hard. I don't believe that. I believe that if kids are put in the right environment and they're challenged on a daily basis the right way, they can achieve some great things in tennis. I do believe that. And we've trained all levels, trained superstars to, obviously some kids that maybe aren't superstars, but they improved greatly. And so that gives us just as much joy as training a superstar type player. So, that's first and foremost. I don't believe in the cookie cutter mold. And I've seen that many times where whether a child is very big or maybe smaller or whatever the case shall be, they maybe all have the same techniques and this and that. And I do not agree with that. I don't. So that's first and foremost. Then, the second thing you spoke about is maybe learning really how to play tennis. So there are certain ways that you train tennis players so that they can start to really construct points properly and learn how to compete properly, and so that they can get great results and achieve what they would love to achieve, with their tennis. So it starts with a certain foundation, and the foundation is obviously technically, mentally, physically. There's a lot of things that have to be in place so so that these youngsters can be constructing proper points over and over and over again in a competitive situation, in a pressure situation, in a tournament, so that they can thrive and achieve what they want to achieve. So you need that really good foundation, so that you can then translate that into, a competitive, situation, or a tournament match, those types of things. So, you see a lot of very rocky foundations. So many times for us, when we're getting kids a little bit later, which is tough, is that we're doing really a crash course in a lot of different areas to fix these kids up, so they can, go off to amazing colleges and these types of things. So
is it, sorry to interrupt you, is it,
sure.
you always hear many coaches and many people say, after when a kid's already 15, 16, and he's done already 3 or 4 years, and you can see there's something technically very wrong, it's nearly impossible to fix it. Would you say that's correct? Or
yes and no. So the basis of my business started here in South Florida because parents were approaching me, and they knew that I was one of the few private guys with an organized system here in South Florida. And the parents were a little uneasy, or very uneasy, and about their child's tennis development. And they felt like the time clock was ticking up for their child to go to a great college. So I would assess these certain children, and it was always from the ages, like you said, from about 15 to 18 years old. And I would have to, think about, the things that I needed to tweak or maybe fix, and all these things, and then put the whole package together, and then send them off to a great university here in the US. So that was very stressful, not only on me, but on the child, and also the parents, because the parents have already spent, you have to, already spent a lot of money, time, energy. Many of them had relocated to South Florida from other parts of the country, or even, some international students as well. So, the kids are definitely feeling that stress. The parents are stressed out, and I'm trying to really help these youngsters achieve what they would love to achieve in a very short time frame. And so that's really how my business started here in South Florida. And, the kids did very well. In terms of making major changes later on in the ball game, I can tell you that it takes tons of repetitions the right way. It takes a lot of hours to these select kids to really clean up some things. And I can tell you that if there's masses of kids around, those things are not getting cleaned up. It's just the reality. And so, like, that's how my business started. And then I started getting phone calls from parents with some younger students that you have more time to really mold and really help them out. So that's kind of how it started for me.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. Yeah. So if you had to your system, how did you already have a very good idea before you started your tennis school, or did you kind of develop it along the way? And if you have a system, is there something quite unique about what you do, or can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I think what I do in South Florida is pretty unique, and many coaches have called me asking me about it, and trying to pick my brain of what I do and how I run it. So it's tricky, maybe you could say, or I would say more of it's a much riskier business plan. And the way that I have it set up, it's we're able to pull it off, but it's not easy for a lot of coaches. So, for example, if a parent calls me, I put and ask, hey, can you look at my child? And then, can they come for a week or a month, or maybe they want to come here full time? Every single child goes through an assessment, a private assessment, with either myself or my partner, Pierre Arnold, who's been one of the most well-respected coaches in South Florida for a little under 40 years. So we take that particular child, and we put them through an assessment. We look at everything, all their techniques, their movements, where they can place a ball, so many different things that we look at. And then we get a great idea of how to train that particular player, and really help them get the most out of their tennis, and really get the most out of their time here. It could be a week, it could be periodically throughout the year, it could be a full-time student for a whole bunch of years with us. So everyone's situation is a little different. In terms of
Okay.
how I run my system, I had tremendous mentors
Good.
that I really listened to, and they told me what to do and how to do it correctly, and
Okay.
really to take care of the kids that we train. So first and foremost, they said, do not start a tennis academy. That was number
Yeah.
one. And I said, okay.
Okay.
They said, take your select students and put your time and energy into the select students and do it the right way. And I said,
Mm.
okay. And this was coming from about 3 or 4 coaches that have really produced, phenomenal players over a whole bunch of
Yeah.
decades, in South Florida. So when they're telling me to do these things, you do it, right?
Yeah.
Because they know
Yeah.
they've been down this road many, many times. They've run academies themselves. They've run small systems themselves. So, as I was learning the ropes and trying to do this and trying to pull it off, they were telling me, what to do and how not to really make some really costly mistakes. So, my system started where I was taking on,
Yeah.
just a few students and really putting my energy into them. And then, those select kids would
Okay.
go off to college, and then hopefully you would, get a couple more students that you could train. And,
Yeah.
and so the results were really good. Like I said, I put a lot of energy into these kids every single day, every week, and they were
Yeah.
serious. Parents were serious. And um and
Yeah.
and it started to
Yeah.
grow a little bit, but it also not out of control. So when I
Yeah.
started to grow it a little bit, so that Pierre, my longtime coach of 20 years, so that he could join me in my system, so I brought him in. And then I wanted to grow it a little bit more, so this gentleman Daniel Yu could join us as well. And this was a gentleman that trained many years under Pierre, from when he was about 14 or 15 years old to when he retired from the ATP
Okay.
Tour. So now Daniel is here as well, and he got ranked about 320 on the ATP Tour. And so I spent many hours training with Daniel and under Pierre as well. And
Okay.
and so the system
Yeah.
is very strong. I think the quality is incredible. So basically, how I run it is, like I said, like a private school for serious tennis players. So these kids
Yeah.
have myself, Daniel, and Pierre every single day, as well as private hitting partners that I hire that trained under me
Mm.
as well. So the
Okay.
kids, I keep the numbers. I cap my system basically at 15 players. And so
Okay.
if you
Yeah. I wanted to
there's
ask that. Yeah.
yeah, there's 3 main
Mm.
coaches, and then there's 2 private hitting partners. And so when you're taking on that few students, and you have these
Yeah.
guys around the kids, I really feel like
They,
they can flourish. And
they're getting the full attention, basically.
they have
100% attention. Yeah.
in 5 hours a day. And so, as well, I'll tell you about the system as well, is that not only do these kids have our attention, we're able to communicate with the parents a lot of what's going on. We
Yeah.
we deal with the tournament scheduling. I deal with the college placement. So the whole system is put together really well. Daniel,
Mm.
you deals mostly with the fitness. I did the
Yeah.
fitness for the first bunch of years. Now he's incredible, so I let him deal with the fitness now, and I help out as well. So I really feel like these select kids have some really good people around them that really care for them, and we're going about it the right way. And this is what
Yeah.
the parents want, and so that's what we're delivering.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Yeah. No, no. It sounds all good. The other thing I really wanted to ask you, which I heard again in one of your previous chats, is, and this interests me. I kind of coach my kids. I'm not a coach, but I mean I've been doing it for 3-4 years. But
Right.
The you talk about structure and discipline, and
Yep.
as discipline being the key factor probably in tennis. Now, when you've got a junior, um, like just to teach him a pattern of play, something like cross court, cross court, cross court down the line, something basic like that, but which is fundamental in tennis. You're basically saying, and I understand that to have the discipline to do that over again, hundreds and hundreds of times, and then to translate it into a match situation. Whoever has the discipline of being able to do that as a junior will have a great advantage. Now, it's funny, I play for fun once or twice a week with some friends of mine, and I sometimes test these things on myself. And I've noticed it hasn't been trained in me, and probably that's why, but the matches I play, and let's say I play against a guy who I usually lose against, if in a set I decide to be disciplined, I see I can get very close or even win the set. The problem is actually being disciplined, because I find myself, and I think this is what a lot of juniors also find themselves, and that's why they need to be coached, like you say, is that they have no game plan. And also, I think they get, how can I explain, maybe bored, or they want to go for the super shot, or the shot that is impossible, or the fantastic shot, and they lack that discipline. Basically, what I'm saying is, I've noticed in me, that's what happens. I want to play because I'm having fun, so I want to do something different or try the impossible shot. But as soon as I'm disciplined and stick to what I should be doing, I'm suddenly very competitive. How do you teach a junior discipline without him or her getting bored?
Sure. Well, it depends on how challenging you make those workouts, right? So we're always assessing, how long a student can stay in a certain drill for, how long they can stay engaged for, mentally and physically, how well they can translate that training into a pressure situation, which is, your match play and point play situations. So we're
but
always...
how do you stimulate that repetition? I mean, doesn't it have to come from the junior? Or, I mean, because it's very difficult if you have to do something 500 times. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So, the environment that we've created is very competitive, right?
Okay.
And so if a child wants to get to, great heights of tennis, they're going to have to do things very repetitively over and over and over again with tunnel vision concentration. And that's trained. And that's trained. Okay. And that's trained under a very high rate of discipline every single day. Just like how you wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and take a shower and eat your breakfast and go to school and or go to work and you do all these things. That's exactly how these tennis players have to be trained as well, under that strict discipline. And that's really how most tennis players aren't trained. And it's also a reason why they're all over the place mentally, to tell you, to give you the truth about it. So like I said, when you're in an arena that has masses of kids, it's very hard. It's very hard to really cater the workouts to each and every individual and really get the most out of each one. It then becomes a very hard thing to manage when you have masses of students, because then you have to make it more of a cookie cutter model, because it's just really hard to manage that. So within our system, with so few kids, we can manage that. We're managing how long they can stay in with really good tunnel vision concentration. We're managing physically how much they can handle before they start, or maybe their strokes and their brains start to break down a little bit. We're managing how long they can really sustain a certain game plan for in practice. We're assessing so many different things, and then spending all these hours every single day with these select kids that they're going to improve, because they have basically the tutors with them every single day, working on these fundamentals and having the same people every single day.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I agree 100%. And how do you develop belief? I think belief in a tennis player, in a junior, is extremely important. And it's kind of maybe an obvious question, but how do you develop belief in a kid? Is it as simple as practice, practice, practice? Then by practicing, you get the results. By getting the results, you start believing in yourself. It's as simple as that.
Sure. So you have to understand what works for each and every student. So I can tell you with myself, for example, I needed to hit tons of balls every single day, work my tail off to absolute exhaustion. And that gave me the self-belief and self-confidence. When I went into a tournament, I deserved to win. I got so
Okay.
many, I felt like I worked harder than any other kid in the country, and I deserved to win. Okay. So that's what worked for me. Does that work for every student? No. You have to understand, like I said earlier, how each and every student ticks. So, but what I can tell you is that the self-belief comes from, if it was a schooling situation, your homework. When kids go to school and they get their homework and they're going over the things that they learned in class that day, that's how, and then that's really how they prepare for their tests. So in tennis, it's very similar. When you're going through your practices have to be very productive. And then when that particular player then plays in a tournament, that's their examination. So then you start to understand how well they're really doing their homework, which is their practices in tennis, and then translating it over to their examination, which is a tournament match or a tournament. Okay. And that's what we're assessing all the time, right? Because you must understand that junior tennis players will always resort back to their habits in a tournament situation, whether they're good habits or they're not such good habits. And so, if, for example, if you're fixing something in practice, and like I said, this is how my business started. If I'm fixing, say, a certain stroke or technique, and then, then basically I go to the tournament to see if that student is applying the new things that I taught them. And if they're not, then it's not fixed yet. It may look like it's great and fixed in practice, but practice is not even close to the amount of stress and pressure that a junior player is going to feel in a tournament. So when that technique is sound under the stress in a tournament, I know that it is fixed and solid, and that we can move on to other things
to the next thing.
into the next stage of development. So that's really, it really comes down to the productivity of training for all of the kids in the world, not just in the United States, but worldwide, is what's the productivity of training on a daily basis? How consistent is it for these tennis players? And so that's why my system is small, because I know for sure that the quality that they're getting on a daily basis is through the roof, and that they're going to progress at a rapid rate because of it. But that's also why the parents come here. That's my business. So, is it right or wrong? No, I just feel like I want the highest quality system that I can have for these select students. Is it wrong to have a tennis academy? No, it's just a much different business model. But I always think in my mind of the highest quality people and system I can put together so to help these children achieve what they would love to achieve.
Excellent. If very, very, very briefly, so if you had to describe a typical day of one of your players, like very briefly, I mean, how much time do they spend on court and off court, and if by the time they wake up till nighttime, what would a typical day look like?
Sure. So my students, some of them do some private time from 8 to 9:30 in the morning. Some do, some don't. Then
Okay.
most of my students show up at 9:15 in the morning. They start going through the warm up, and the warm up is the same. Like I said, disciplined. The warm up is the same warm up every single day. It does not change. Okay, so they start with a certain run. They go through certain exercises. They jump rope. They do their band exercises for their arms. And then at 9:30 a.m., we now incorporate what I consider movement or bounce class. And that goes for
Okay.
another 10 or 15 minutes. So what we're seeing is a lot of kids that are having trouble moving properly, being light on their
Yeah.
feet, lateral movements, maybe stepping into the ball, not being on the back foot, the balance, all these things. So I consider it, and if you follow me on social media, you'll see some clips of it. I consider it bounce or movement class. So we make sure that we accomplish that for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we break off into the tennis training, and that goes till about till about 11:30 a.m. So, basically, it's hard to say what each individual is going to be working on that day, because some of my private hitting partners are with students, or maybe we have two students together working on certain things. Maybe myself, Daniel, or Pierre took a student with some private attention to the side to work on some specific things that we know needs to be worked on. But the drills that we're doing are basic drills for the foundation of these students, and we're fixing techniques and teaching them how to move, how to train, how to concentrate. We're putting all of this together so that we're not wasting any time. So you see tennis coaches where maybe they focus on one thing, maybe it's a swing, but there's no movement involved and there's no ball placement involved in that. So I don't feel like that's as productive as it could be for a high performance junior player. You see that all the time on social media. You may see someone drop feeding a ball, and you see kids swinging and they're only working on the swing, right? But I don't really agree with that. And the reason is that when you drop feed a ball, that ball is in the same position every single time. It's very unrealistic. Okay, when someone hits a ball, it's coming at different speeds, trajectories, spins, all these things. It could be windy out, whatever it is. But when you drop feed or even feed a ball, that's not realistic. Okay, and then another thing that you see is that you see kids that are hitting the ball all over the place. So maybe their swings are really nice, but the targets that they're hitting are all over the place. So it really then that doesn't mean much either. So we're working on all of these things, the whole package, to put it together. And so we work on those things in the morning. Then the kids take a lunch break from about 11:30 to 12:15. Then 12:15 they go through their warm up again. Then they go through the bounce/movement class again. And then in the afternoon, where the kids are now competing and we're working on proper point construction, competing. Many times there's teams, so it's fun, and they're competing properly and competing for something, maybe a little fitness or whatever it shall be. But we're then assessing how well the kids are translating the technical, physical, mental aspect of what they worked on in the morning, and then applying it to point play, competitive situations in the afternoon. So, and then about 2:15 starts fitness. Okay, fitness goes till about 3 to 3:15, and most of the time our fitness is based on proper tennis movements, strength and balance, being light on the feet,
Tennis specific.
very, very tennis specific. And here's another thing that I think people need to understand is that I've had many parents come to me and say, yeah, I hired a trainer and my child is doing this or that. And what I can tell you is that most trainers don't really understand tennis specific movements. They may understand some of the bigger sports, in the United States, it could be soccer, baseball, football, hockey, these other sports, but tennis is different. Tennis, you need someone that really understands how, the proper movements, the agility, how to cross over, side shuffle, cut the angles, you know, all many different things that I'm seeing kids that really don't understand and don't have the strength and really the background of proper movements. So when you take that into effect and you start to see the kids train, if you can't move properly, 100% your techniques are going to break down. So it doesn't matter tennis lessons you take, how many balls that coach has fed you, how many they've drop fed, it doesn't matter, because if the players don't know how to move and balance and understand core positioning and all these things, they're going to be in big trouble.
That's something actually I learned. Well, I noticed quite early on with my kids is they were going to these groups, and they're just hitting a ball, and we were lucky enough to do well. I'm from Italy originally, but we went back on holiday once a year, and we went to a few different academies, one in Spain, one in Croatia, more of a holiday sort of clinic, but they were seriously good academies. I mean, one was the Croatian Federation. Anyway, from Spain, one thing I came back that I really noticed, which was huge, is there they kept on saying to me, there we teach, most places teach tennis from the head down. So they're hitting, but they're not worrying about what's happening down there. We teach it from the ground up. So they were all about movement and how you move. And then above where you hit is, because everyone can hit eventually. But nobody seems to be able to move very well. And, I've noticed they were not learning anything of that. And it's crucial. I mean, in tennis, if you can't get to the ball well, you can be the best person to clean it to hit it as cleanly as possible. But if you're not there on time and in position, it doesn't mean anything. So I understand perfectly what you say as well. I mean, I think it's crucial, and I think too many people don't understand that or don't concentrate on that. But maybe that's why.
I agree, because what your viewers must understand is that I was brought up by two very tough disciplinarian Argentine coaches here in South Florida. And
I was going to ask you about that a bit later, but no, that's fine. Yeah, because I know you were. Carry on with two Argentines. Yes.
So the way that I was trained, as well as many other players that became very good players, is that they teach you the movements and the balance at a very young age, and the techniques and the mentality and tactically how to play. And they're putting together this whole package. And now you understand why the Spanish are so successful as well, is that, they're putting this package together as well. So when I see kids that aren't moving properly, or they're standing and hitting and these types of things, that's going to really hamper how good they get at tennis. So it's really important that parents seek out coaches that really understand not only the techniques and grips, so that they need someone to teach the children how to move properly, how to compete properly, how to construct proper points, how to train properly. So, there's a lot of different things for junior players to learn and understand before they become, really high level players.
Yeah, definitely. And your two Argentinian coaches. I actually lived in Buenos Aires for 1.5 years, and I think I listened to you. You were they influenced your way you coach, or anyway, in how you structure and things. And I think if you've ever, what I came away from Argentinian, having met a lot of Argentinians when I was there, is that they are, there's good and bad, like for everyone, but they are very maybe meticulous, and they take their work very seriously. They're very proud and maybe a bit stubborn. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And I'll tell you my upbringing, which I believe was probably like a Tony Nadal type tennis upbringing, is that they're
Okay.
very passionate. You're built on respect. You're built
Yes.
on
Yeah.
coming to work every single day.
Yeah.
You know, for example, so the two Argentine coaches, like I said previously, one is Pierre Arnold, and then one was George Paris, who unfortunately passed away when I was 15. But these two gentlemen were best friends and business partners. And I can tell you that when I was about 7 years old and I was taking lessons from George, he wouldn't even give me a lesson unless my shirt was tucked in. That's first and
Mm.
foremost. So this
Yeah.
was a very tough tennis upbringing that you learned respect, humbleness, and you came to work every single day. But you as a
Yeah.
student, you knew that these coaches, they wanted the best for you. They loved
Yeah.
you as an individual. They spent the amount of hours. They went over and above the call of duty for each and every student. And you know, it was just a tremendous upbringing. And I think it's
Yeah.
pretty rare. But yeah, in terms of my background of tennis, which was being trained by Argentines, I mean, you came out with, you know,
Mm.
with humbleness, respect for people.
Yeah.
You train to the fullest, to, you know, to exhaustion. I mean, to really, you know, pushing your body and your mind to greater heights all the time. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just a great upbringing for tennis, but it was just a great upbringing for life after tennis,
Yeah.
because you know it only lasts so long, and then there's life
Exactly.
after. So
Yeah.
I'm super proud, and I know that I was very fortunate to be brought up by these individuals, and they spent a lot of time and energy with me to really help me and see how far I could take my tennis. So I would say there's definitely a lot of Argentine in me for sure, because that's something, you know, that you know, I
Did,
remember these lessons
did
growing
did
up,
you
and
have a
they
lot of as sorry, did you have a lot of asados, a lot of grills or barbecues?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I do now. I grill all
Oh,
the
you do
time.
not. Okay.
But you know, I mean, these gentlemen, they took you under their wing. They came out
Yeah.
with a tremendous amount of passion. They loved their work. They really pushed you hard. They wanted you to
Mm.
achieve amazing things. They would never give up on you. This was their profession. This was their job. They loved to
Yeah.
be on the court with their students. And so, you know, that was just a really a tremendous upbringing. And I can guarantee you, Tony Nadal with
Yeah.
Rafa in Spain, I can guarantee you that upbringing was very similar.
Pretty similar. Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks. You know, I wrote down a few questions I wanted to ask you, and you know, I'm not even halfway, but I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah,
I really don't. But I'm just going to jump maybe somewhere else here. But for example, do you? No, that's. I was just thinking. Do you think junior tournaments, doing ITFs, things like that, what sort of importance do you put on that, or and what sort of importance is there in having a good UTR and all these kind of ranking systems when you're under 18? Do they really help if you want to get into a college? Is it really necessary? And the reason I'm asking that is also, I'm just making an example now. Here in South Africa, and it's not really an excuse, but we have very few ITFs. We've got maybe, you know, 5 in the whole country. Then you
right,
have to travel, and you have to travel quite far. So, you know, you end up playing more or less always the same people down here, even though it's a big country. On top of
right,
that, we have a currency, which is, you know, as soon as you exchange it, it's not worth a lot. So, you know, a South African junior is faced with, obviously, tennis is extremely expensive, and not
right.
many tournaments. So maybe he finds himself, you know, let's say he wants to go to a US college, finds himself in a bit of a difficult, you know, what should he do? What do you think? Is it important to play these tournaments, travel and try and get that experience? But if you can't, what would you suggest to do?
Sure. Well, I always look at, first and foremost, the training, because without proper and great training every single day, it doesn't matter about the tournaments really, because you're not going to have the desired results unless you're training really, really well. So, you know, with students of ours in the U.S., which would be different than an international student, is that we feel that the best way for a child to develop is for them to play their nationals here in the U.S. There's a lot of prize money tournaments here locally in Florida. So you end up playing juniors, college players, and low-level professionals. And if you're doing really, really well, then try to enter the professional arena at around 16 to 18 years old. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is you're going to be playing those types of players when you enter a high level of college tennis. So if you're entering college tennis, you haven't had a lot of experience playing players older than you and adults, and you're still, you know, maybe 17 or so years old, you're probably a little far behind, because the college coaches are going to need for you to be beating these types of players when you enter college tennis. So
You're obviously talking about the very high, let's say, top positions of a Division One in this case.
Yeah, it could be that, but there's even great players in Division Two and Division Three. It's not just Division One. So
okay.
you know, you're going to be playing adults in any of those divisions, right? So
Okay.
if you only played juniors and then you enter college tennis and now you're playing players, I mean, you could be an 18-year-old freshman and you're playing a 22-year-old senior. Well, that's a big difference, right? That could be a big mentally and physically. And if that particular player doesn't have that type of experience, it's going to be pretty hard for them to pull off a victory for their school and their team. So, you know, I don't really have students chasing ITF points. And I can tell you another reason why is that ITF tennis tournaments go for a whole week. And maybe a particular student will be gone for multiple weeks. And so that player is only playing one match a day. And so now they're losing a lot of precious training time. So you have to understand also is that when a player goes to a tournament, they're trying to win as many matches as possible. So they're not training. And then also they're probably not doing a great deal of physical fitness. So tournaments are not really per se to be becoming a better player. Training is to become a better player and then bringing that to a tournament. So when you're in a tournament, it's to compete properly and try to win and you know and playing certain game plans and these types of things. But you're not per se becoming a better player, and you're not physically becoming stronger and fitter. In fact, you're losing fitness. So that's why I'm pretty against kids that are traveling multiple weeks at a time to be playing junior events, because as a junior player, you're trying to develop to become a better player. And when you're going away to play, you know, international events, unless you have an incredible coach with you that really understands these things, most likely you're not doing the proper things on the road. And so when these players come back home to train, many times they're maybe out of shape, or maybe technically things have broken down, you know, so there's a lot of things to then assess what needs to be worked on again. And so I can tell you many times kids are not ready to be playing in tournaments, but their parents are putting them into tournaments. So now a child may suffer some defeats that really upsets them and then they're not happy about. Now you're dealing with confidence, and confidence is very precious. So, you know, like I said, there's a lot of things that I think a high level coach would assess to every time a child comes back to tournaments.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you there, but in a way, I mean, from what I hear, but I might be completely wrong. Let's say somebody wants to apply for a college to get a tennis scholarship. I'm hearing that they need to have a very good UTR rating. Now, if you don't play a lot of tournaments, you're not going to get a good UTR rating as an under 18, or is that not correct?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot of tournaments. So UTR, as I say, if you train well, that translates into good tournament results. then those UTR numbers, they take care of themselves. I think the
Okay.
training is first and foremost being trained well. Then if you're trained well and the player is doing well, then it's going to translate into more tournament victories, which translates into a higher UTR. So all of these
Okay.
things are managed by good coaches. They don't just throw
Okay.
players to the arena of a tournament and hope that they're going to do well
No,
and hope their UTR goes up. That's not a
so
great way. So that's really
so
the thing.
know how to pick your tournaments, basically. Pick them
Yeah,
at
you
the right times. Yeah.
in your corner that understands your child, understands proper tennis management, understands, all these different things that we've spoken about on this show, so that these
Yeah.
junior players can really thrive and achieve what they would love to achieve.
Yeah.
Times kids don't have this person in their corner, and so the parents are trying to micromanage all these different things, and it's hard if they
Yeah.
haven't played tennis previously and don't know high
Yeah.
performance tennis and how to be developing junior players. It can be
Big
very
mess.
tough,
Yeah.
very confusing, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Last two quick ones before I go into the second part, which will be quick. Don't worry. It's just
No,
a. But
no problem.
the
Yeah.
tennis format. There's a lot of talk about, especially now with this pandemic, and people have been still, and now they've been thinking, and there's a new ATP president. Blah 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 blah. And they're saying the viewership. But by the way, I'm interested in this. Do kids in the USA, juniors, teenagers, do they like watching tennis, or do they just like playing tennis?
I
Is
think
it?
it
Yeah.
depends on the individual. I've had tremendous players that love to watch tennis. I can tell you the first thing when I come home from work, I turn the tennis channel on to see what's going on. Right? I've been doing that since I was a kid. When I was growing up, basically you just knew the times that tennis was on certain sports channels, and I would
Yeah.
make sure I could watch those. Now I walk through the door and I turn on the tennis channel and I'm just checking out what's going on. I've had
But the
tremendous
kids,
players. Yep.
do you think kids are losing interest, in the sense, I get a sense that tennis is, the world's moved to a phase where everything is kind of, especially with technology, kids want everything immediately, and they can get it quickly on their fingertips, on their phones, on their computers, whatever. And to sit down and watch 2 3 hour tennis match, I don't know many teenagers who do that. At least I haven't come across many. So it sort of kind of makes me think sometimes, even though I can watch tennis all day long in its current format and I love it, but maybe in 20 30 years time there won't be many people doing that. Is it time to change maybe a bit the format? They're trying to do this, sorry, like in France right now, Mortagalou, Patrick Mortagalou, I don't know if I say his name right, but he's
Yep.
got this UTS, Ultimate Tennis Showdown, where it's a bit exaggerated. But do you think it's time to maybe do it that there's no ad, no let, shorter time between points, or do you think it should just stay the way it is? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not for shorter formats.
Okay.
Maybe I'm a purist or whatever you want to call it, but I'm not for it. They're trying to reinvent the wheel, and
Okay.
I just I don't per se really like it. They've changed
Okay.
formats here in junior tennis and college tennis in the United States, and I'm 100% against it.
Okay.
Anytime you take away a third set from a developing junior player, anytime you take away ads, you're hurting the development of those players. And people may not like what I'm saying right now, but I
Mm,
100% believe this. And I'm
okay.
seeing it all throughout junior tennis, and I'm seeing it in college tennis. And if
Okay.
and and really the numbers show, right? The
Okay.
numbers of professional players from the United States, sorry, junior players becoming professional players in the United States, we are struggling. Okay. And if you look at the other countries worldwide, they're not doing these things. The kids are playing third sets. They're playing ads. They're not doing short stuff. Right.
Okay.
And to me, I don't like it at all. And,
Okay.
and it shows. I mean, if you look at the kids that are going from junior tennis to college tennis, there's fewer and fewer
Yeah.
kids coming out of college tennis to become professional players. And,
Okay.
and those numbers don't lie.
Okay. Okay. No, that's very interesting. Yeah. Last one. Obviously, you were a professional player. Who was the player that you played against that impressed you the most, like completely blew you away?
Well,
If there is one is there one that stood out?
there's a bunch where I would look across the net and I would think to myself, man, how good they are at certain things or things that they could do that there's no way that I could do. Usually it was athleticism. So say a
Okay.
a David Ferrer type or a Radek Stepanek who could move forward from the baseline to the net. I had never played anyone that could move forward that fast and cut off volleys, which was incredible. And he was an incredible mover, laterally
Okay.
as well. Then, like you said, I mean, I played Kevin Anderson a whole bunch of times. I played John Isner. Usually the
What
things
about Kevin? Sorry, Kevin Anderson. What's his serve like when you're on the other side?
serve was just tremendous. I mean, that's the basis of his game. He
Yeah.
developed parts of his game to become one of the most elite players in the world. But the serve stands out. The two
Yeah.
things that really stand out to me when as I'm thinking about it now as we're speaking is that you have guys that have tremendous serves, or you have guys that are just off the charts,
Movers.
physical athletes that are just incredible, right? Those are the two
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
Everybody can all. They're all mentally tough. They're fighters. They fight hard. Everybody can do that. But when you have a serve like a Kevin Anderson or a John Isner, where you're guaranteed almost every single time to hold serve, or you have
Yeah.
athletes, Rafael Nadal, David Ferrer, Andy Murray, Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer. I mean, these guys are incredible. They have the foot speed of the world's best athletes in any sporting arena. So that's just really
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. 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 I agree. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, thanks. This is just part two. You can keep it really short. You don't need to elaborate. I'm just going to throw you all kinds of questions just to maybe get to know you a bit better, but you can keep it really short.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's your very first memory of tennis?
My first memory of tennis was when I was 6 years old, and I was part of a big group at the local country club here in Coral Springs, Florida, and I was just being fed balls and hitting balls and getting back in line as a 6 year old. Those are my first memories.
Okay. Who influenced you? Was it a parent or a coach, or who was your first person to push you towards tennis?
So I grew up. My father was a tremendous golfer, and my mom
Okay.
was into tennis. So I
Okay.
learned both at a very young age.
Okay. Do you currently still play a match now and then, or do you just coach so much that you don't kind of feel the
You know,
need to do that?
I don't play matches, but I jump into workouts every so often and start running and hitting the ball. But I don't really serve and return much anymore. So I'm usually just into hitting games or drills and those types of things.
Okay. If you had to define to somebody who's never seen you what type of player you are, how would you describe yourself?
I would say I'm an all court player. So I had to, I'm not the biggest guy. I'm a little under 6 feet, about 5'11". And so I had to really use my brain and my heart to really get through matches when I was coming through amateur tennis or professional tennis. So I had an all around game. Some matches I would serve and volley a lot if I needed to, or I would hit the return and come in, or I would grind from a little far back behind the baseline, or I would take the ball early and really try to hurt players. So when you're a little smaller, when you're not one of those giants on
Yeah.
the 18th floor, you have to win with your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a tennis idol growing up or not really?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple
No.
players that I love to watch. Obviously, I always love to watch Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras play. Those were incredible matches. I
Okay.
loved Jim Courier. I'm a redhead, and he was a redhead from Florida, so he was
Yeah.
he was he was a grinder. I loved guys that were
Okay.
really tough mentally. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be tough.
So,
So
so is your
the
is your current favorite player Nadal then, or
Yeah, well,
not?
I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I like watching them all. They all have different
Okay.
styles. But for me, I just wanted to be super tough. I wanted to be like really like an animal out there. I wanted to really try to kill the other person across the net. So, yeah, that's how I was.
The best match that you remember that you have ever played in any situation.
That's a good one. Okay. Well, I think one of the best matches that I ever played was probably against Robbie Ginepri at the ATP
Yeah.
event in San Jose, California. Unfortunately, they don't have that event anymore, but that used to be played in February. I grew up
Okay.
watching the San Jose ATP tournament, watching guys like Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, and I grew up with Robbie Ginepri, and I drew him first round after I got through qualifying, and I came up with a great game plan. And also keep in mind that I trained with
Yeah.
Robbie a lot, and I had probably never done better than 6-2 in a practice set against him. And I figured out a
Okay.
way to be better than him in those 2 hours in those 3 sets. It was probably the best match I ever played on tour, even though I played a bunch of good ones, but that was probably the one that really stands out the
Okay.
most.
And he was, I think, also like a top 40, top 50 player or something like that, if I
He was
remember.
actually, his career high ranking was 15, and he barely lost to
Okay.
Andre. I can't remember what year it was at the U.S. Open to actually make the finals of the U.S. Open.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great
And
player.
yeah, no, very good player. Best match that you've ever seen. It can be a pro, a club level, or even a junior level, college level, any level. Is there one that really you remember like being this is the best match ever that you've seen?
There are kind of probably two that stick out in my mind, even though there's so many. When Rafael Nadal played Guillermo Coria in the finals of the Italian Open, and it went deep into the fifth set, that tennis was just incredible for such an extended period of time. When Nadal played Fernando Verdasco, I believe it was maybe the semifinals of the Australian Open. I mean, there's so many great matches, but those two might stick out. You know, for
Okay.
for and there were so many great matches between Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras too that I loved watching.
Yeah. Which is your favorite tournament in the world?
Easy decision. Indian Wells Masters Series in
Uh,
California. It is
yeah,
incredible.
that is one of my dreams is to go and visit
That
and see the
tournament to
tournament.
me
Yeah.
was an absolute paradise. Yep.
Do you have a favorite court? Your court, favorite court
Sure.
that you've
Well,
played on?
before the Australian Open changed over to a normal hard court, they used to have the rebound ace at the Australian Open, which I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. The ball
Okay.
would really jump. It would jump high, but you could hit through the court as well. So I enjoyed playing in Australia.
In Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to like the Australian Open.
Yeah.
If you have to choose, is there a tennis shoe that you've always like? Is there a particular tennis shoe brand that you've said, "Wow, this is the best shoe I've ever had"?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Is
I
it
can tell.
something you can answer? Because I know maybe.
No, it's okay. So when I
Yeah.
was in college, I wore a Nike shoe that Carlos Moya and Leighton Hewitt used to wear. Can't remember the name, but it was by far the most comfortable shoe I had ever worn. Then I wore another Nike shoe when in 2009 when I played David Ferrer and I had the good tournament against Robbie Ginepri. I was wearing another Nike shoe then. But now I really
Okay.
feel like I have an incredible shoe that I'm wearing now, and it's a New Balance shoe, and I just started
Okay.
wearing it a week ago, and I think it's incredible. It's super comfortable, and I've been hitting a lot of balls lately, and I love it. So I'm gonna get some
Okay.
more from New Balance for
Is
sure.
that a new shoe, a New Balance shoe
Yeah,
that's
it's
come
a new
out? Okay.
shoe. Yes.
Um, yeah. What do you know? What strings do you play with, or is it something not that important right now for you? Or
Sure. No, it's important. When I'm
okay.
hitting with my high level kids, I like a good feel off the racket. So I use what's considered probably the best combination for high level players, which is Luxilon in the main strings and Babolat VS Gut in the cross strings.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
expensive, but the feel is incredible.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I've never tried that, but I'd love to one day just do it. It's, as you say, it's quite expensive, but
It
and
is, yeah.
what tension do you use? Do you have?
So when I have the Luxilon in the main strings, I use 52 pounds. And then
Yeah.
with the gut, you always go a little tighter with the cross
Yeah.
string. So I go with 55 pounds on the cross strings with the gut.
Okay. Do you have an all-time favorite racket?
Easy answer on this one. Babolat to make what was called the Babolat Pure Control Plus, and they discontinued
Okay.
it while I was on tour, and I can't find them anywhere. I think I have a couple in my garage, but they're kind of dead. But that was by far my favorite racket. In fact, there were a lot of tour players that used it at that time as well.
What is it, about 10, 15 years ago? This.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I
Okay.
think I started using it maybe in maybe 2004 or 2005.
Okay. Best tennis club you have ever been to, and why is it special?
Oh man, let me see here. The best tennis club. Hmm, that's a good question. I've played at a lot of clubs. Well, okay, here's a good one.
Yeah.
So Fisher Island in Miami, which is a private island off of South Beach. You have to take a ferry,
Okay.
drive your car on the ferry to this private island, and it's a paradise. I practiced there with Mark
Okay.
Lucis when I think
Okay.
maybe back in 2007 or 2008. I took my top student there to train with Fernando Verdasco. They have every surface. They have hard red clay, green clay, grass as
Mm.
well. And so the players that are pretty wealthy, the top professionals, they stay there for the Miami Open, or at least they used to before it moved
No.
to Hard Rock Stadium. So when the Miami
Okay.
played on Crandon Park, um,
Yeah.
that's where the wealthy players would stay. They'd rent places there, and it was very very private, so they always enjoyed that. But I enjoyed. I can tell you, I mean, there's a lot of great clubs. I played in Italy and France, and there's some really beautiful clubs with the red clay. And I just think, going to a club with red clay that's in fantastic shape, there's just something so beautiful about that.
That sounds really amazing. That Fisher Island. I must plan a trip there.
Oh, you better
uh,
know get on that island.
what's your favorite surface? Is it clay?
Like I said, I was brought up by Argentines, so I enjoyed
Yeah.
clay. So,
Okay.
for me, both surfaces were great. Playing
Okay.
on red clay, like a really nice red clay court with,
Mm.
with European red clay is just, that's something special in my opinion.
Okay, this is a bit of a different one. You have to book a restaurant, and you can invite any free players to join you, male or female. Which restaurant and which players would you choose?
Oh, good one. That's a good one. All right. I'm bringing on.
Anytime, also.
I'm bringing Andre Agassi.
Yeah.
Who else? I'm bringing Jim Courier
Okay.
and I'm bringing Pierre with me also, my longtime coach. He's coming with me too.
Okay. And what restaurant would you go to?
Oh man. That's a good question too. I love food. I've put on some pounds over the years. So, one of the most famous restaurants in Miami, and keep in mind, Miami is about an hour drive from me, is Joe's Stone
Okay.
Crab. It's super famous place in South Beach in Miami. That's one of the top places, that are considered
Okay.
in the world. So there's so many good places to eat at, but that one has the name. There's another place in Boca Raton, which is about 20
Mm.
minutes from me, called New York Prime, and I ate there back in December, and that was one of the best meals I had ever eaten at. So I've been fortunate to eat at
Okay.
some places here in Florida, but also worldwide. But these places are definitely special.
Favorite pizza? Staying on
Favorite?
the food topic.
Oh yeah, well, I can talk about this for hours. Definitely in Italy. I mean, the best food in the world, to me, hands down, is in Italy. No doubt about it. I mean, I'm an Italian food lover, and
Okay.
Italy to me was absolute heaven when I was there.
Uh,
So,
do you have a favorite country to visit as well? I mean, you've probably traveled a lot.
I traveled so much, I don't travel much anymore. But I can tell
Okay.
you, Australia was really incredible. It felt like it took forever to get there, but it was a fantastic country. I mean, I loved Australia.
Okay.
I always thought
Okay.
that two favorite countries were the U.S. and Australia, but there's plenty of places I
Okay.
haven't been to yet. So maybe I get to some of these others as well.
What other sports do you enjoy playing or watching?
Sure. So, like I said, I grew up playing tennis and golf,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
also played quite a bit of soccer and baseball. But
Okay.
I love watching golf. I try to play as much golf as I can. My older son, who's 6 years old, he's already competing in tournaments in golf, and so I caddy for him. So I love,
Okay.
country club guy. I guess I love tennis and golf. Those are my two sports.
Good. Would you say tennis is the most difficult sport in the world, or do you think there's a sport that's more difficult?
You know what? I can tell you that when I was on tour, and you were competing against the world's best tennis players every single week, I felt like tennis was the most difficult sport to play. And I guess everyone
Mm.
has their opinion, but when you start to factor in the physicality, the mental aspect of it, the technical aspect of it, the traveling, the different court services, all the different hotels, different balls
Yeah.
every week make a big difference. I really felt that tennis would definitely test you many different ways, and you'd have to be really
Yeah.
strong mentally and physically to survive.
Mm. That's a good answer. If it's 2050, sorry, 30 years from now, how do you
Right.
think tennis will look like?
I think I can tell you that the way I see it is that when I was a kid growing up and you'd watch the best tennis players in the world, they all had a glaring weakness. It could be a forehand, backhand, maybe movement, maybe slice backhand volleys, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And now you're not seeing these things, right? When you look at these
Mm.
phenomenal players on the ATP tour and the WTA tour, they're becoming more and more complete. And
Yeah.
athletically, they're off the charts. So if you're
Yeah.
talking 30 years from now, they're going to be bigger, stronger, faster. The ball is going to be moving at speeds which are just crazy, and it's only just going to continue to get faster, and the players are going to have to be stronger and fitter as the years go on.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, they might have to change something if it continues getting bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, it already is incredible, but it's I think time will tell.
Yeah.
I've just got a last thing here. I call it a super tie break because it's 10 questions. Complete your perfect player. Can be male or female. All-time player. You have to choose the serve.
The serve, I think you go with John Isner on the men's side and Serena Williams on the women's side.
Okay. Return. You can also just pick one. It doesn't matter if it's male or female.
Return a serve. Well, I'm going to give you two. You're either going to go with Agassi or Djokovic.
Okay, I would pick the same. Yeah. Forehand.
Forehand. I would pick Roger on the forehand.
Okay. Backhand.
Backhand, I think again you're going with Agassi or Djokovic on the backhand.
Volley.
The volleys. Let's see here. Trying to think. Best volleys. Because not many volley that much anymore, that well anymore. So now I have to go back to previous generations. So let's see here. Patrick Rafter, there's a good one for you.
Okay.
Volleys, yeah. He was incredible. Tim Henman was another one. Incredible volleys.
Yeah. Okay. Drop shot.
Gustavo Kuerten.
Okay.
At the
movement.
Movement. You know, I watched Novak Djokovic for the first time at the Miami Open, obviously not this year because of the pandemic, but in 2019, and I had never seen anyone more balanced and prepared to hit a tennis ball in my life than Novak Djokovic.
Really? Okay, wow.
It was incredible for me to watch.
Mentality.
Rafael Nadal, Serena Williams.
Yeah. Style.
Roger Federer, hands down.
And personality.
Personality. Are we talking about a positive one or a negative one?
Well, it could be either. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, on the negative side, Kyrgios, which I'm not a fan of his, by the way, not at all. But
okay.
Personality, you know, I think Andy Roddick had a tremendous personality.
Okay.
You know, I think who else? Who was it? Marat Safin. I loved Marat Safin, even though he was he was incredible. I loved him.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some good personalities.
Personalities. Fantastic. Now, very, very last thing. I actually stole this question. There was was watching these interviews. I grew up in Italy, and there was this famous interviewer who would always end his interviews with this question. Ask yourself a question, a tennis-related question, and answer it.
Okay. Ask myself a tennis-related question and answer it. That's a good one. That's a good one. Huh. Let me see here. A tennis-related question I would ask myself is that at what particular point in your tennis career did you actually wake up and say to yourself, I have to do everything possible for me to become the best player that I could become? And I can tell you that when I took a trip to Italy and France and I saw Janko Tipsarevic play, I was 16 years old and Janko was a year younger than me at 15 years old. That's when I realized that I needed to become a much better player if I was ever going to have the chance to become a professional player. At that time, I was ranked top 5 in the United States in the 16 and under division, and I got invited to play 2 tournaments in Italy and 1 in France. And I saw Janko there, and I didn't know who he was. And he was so good at 15 years old, I wasn't sure I was going to get games off of him. That's when I realized that I needed to step up every single thing in my tennis training, mental training, physical training, everything to even have a chance to play pro tennis.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's it. Look, thanks very much. I really enjoyed this chat. I mean, as I said, I had a whole bunch of other questions, but I think it's already going a bit too long here. And thank you very much for being on the podcast. As I said, this is a hobby of mine. I'm just somebody who's extremely passionate about it, and I've just started this as a hobby. But it was great talking to you, and hopefully, maybe one day I'll come to Florida and see what you do at your tennis school. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on, and maybe we can do it again. Thanks, Gianluca. I appreciate it.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Todd. And yeah, maybe speak again.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Okay. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.